All right, Candace. Well, I would love for you to take some time to just introduce yourself, talk about why you started Easily Virtual, and just kind of like your background as a real estate agent. And yeah, we're so
Okay.
excited to have you here. Thanks for being
I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay, do you mind if I share my screen?
No, go for it.
Okay. All right, cool.
I
Okay, and then you just tell me 1 second.
Any paper or anything taken?
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
perfect. So, I'm Candace Decker. Nice to meet you all. I have been in the real estate business for about 12 years. Started out as a producing single agent, and then I built a mega team of 30 plus people, and I got really burnt out and exhausted. Have you guys had that experience where you're just feeling super burned out in the business? Um, and so, as I was really looking at our industry as a whole, I just found that this is a problem that a lot of people are experiencing. And I had hired a virtual assistant 6 plus years ago, and she's still with me today. And when I look at all of the growth that I had from growing my solo business and then my team, and I had a lot of in-person staff and I had a lot of agents. But when I looked back, the one of the biggest key roles was my assistant. And so I wanted to be able to show other agents in the industry how you can grow with a virtual assistant and how you could really leverage your time because every agent, whether you're a brand new agent or you're selling 100 homes a year and you've been doing this for 20 years, you're probably not using the best of your time. Like, just most of us aren't. And so, what I want to talk to you guys today about is how you can hire, onboard, and leverage a VA so you can just close more deals, but also have a better life. So, I've been in a lot of coaching programs in a lot of big rooms in the industry. And what I also found was that a lot of times they talk a lot about building businesses, but they never talk about having a better life. And this is the part too that, I really want you guys to think about is like, how can you sell real estate and that be really fulfilling, but also have a super fulfilling life and actually get to enjoy yourself? One of the biggest things that I notice is that a lot of times as agents, we don't take care of our health. We tend to ignore some of the most important people in our lives. And, we really get addicted to this business. And so sometimes we have to take a look at our personal life and our business life and make those decisions. Okay, how can we be fulfilled in both? So super excited. Raise your hand if you've had a virtual assistant before. Has anybody? Okay. Jenny, Alex is one of our Easily Virtual clients. So her and I have worked together for probably the last 9 months. So awesome. Jenny, I know you're muted. Do you still have your virtual assistant?
No, I hired one on a project basis when I was
Okay.
transferring from my old brokerage to
Got
real.
it.
So I had her do like a bunch of tasks to kind of get me set up for that, but I
Okay.
don't have her currently like in everyday business.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. So here's what I want to talk about today. When to hire a VA. So when do you know when the right time is? What tasks to offload first? That's one of the biggest questions we get when we get a new client. What to look for in a great VA. Like, how do you know, especially if you've never hired somebody before, like most of us as real estate agents, like we've just never hired before. So what are we going to look for? And then how do we set them up for success? Because a lot of us are hot messes in our business. So how are we going to show them the way when we don't know? So how are we going to do that? And then what are the systems and communication tools? There's so much confusion that goes on of like, okay, how do I work with somebody who's actually across the world? So we're going to cover that. And then pricing and what you can expect when you do hire somebody. And then we're going to do a Q&A at the end. You guys can ask me anything. Okay, so I want you guys to think, does this sound like me? You are the agent and you are also your assistant. So you're actually doing two people's jobs. So what happens when you are splitting a job, you're doing two jobs, you're either going to fall in the $12 an hour camp or the $12,000 camp. Missed my comma there. $12,000 work. Um, you're missing follow-ups, forgetting to send emails, or just straight up dropping the ball on your leads. Like most of our clients, when I say, how much time do you spend in your CRM every day? They say, I haven't logged into my CRM lately. That is where the money's at. You're working nights and weekends just to keep up. Like we end up in real estate getting on this relentless path of not protecting our time. And so when you're just always trying to catch up, you're not growing. You've thought about hiring, but you have no idea where to start. You're at capacity and leaving money on the table. Like I know for me, when I plateaued, I was doing between like 25 and 35 deals a year, and I could not do any more because I just physically was tapped on time, working till 11 o'clock at night, working till midnight. So if you feel like that, you're probably leaving money on the table right now. All right, so let's go over how do you know when you are ready to hire? It's probably earlier than you think. So I want to give you a prime example of why it's never too early to hire an assistant. So I moved markets in 2019. So I went from the Chicagoland area in Illinois to South Florida, starting from zero. I hired an assistant. So I interviewed and hired somebody prior to me even moving to my new market. That's how I knew that I needed to protect my time around money making activities and me spending time writing blog posts and crafting email newsletters and putting together graphics. I knew that wasn't going to drive my business in a brand new market, but I knew that going out and shooting content, I knew that calling expireds and following up with people and building a brand on social media, I knew that's what was going to drive me. So I hired an assistant before I had any business. Okay, but signs you are ready. You're turning away business. So if you cannot take on another client because your admin work has just maxed you out, it's time. Repetitive tasks eat your mornings up. So when you guys get to your computer in the morning or you get on your email on your phone, you've got emails, you're scheduling showings, you've got to enter new people into the CRM, you have to post on social. All of a sudden, your entire day, or at least half of your day, is now taken up with these tasks. So, what would it look like if all of those tasks were taken off your plate? Somebody was catching up on your emails, somebody was scheduling your showings, somebody else was putting your new leads into your CRM, and somebody else was creating your content. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at your hot list of sellers. Like, I've got 10 sellers right now who I know I could go get that listing. That's where you want to spend your time, not on these tasks. You're reactive and not strategic. So, you should be out closing and prospecting and not chasing paperwork. So, how can you be playing offense instead of defense? And then you've missed something. So, you're dropping follow-ups, you're late on deadlines, and you're just really scattered. So, those are really the signs that you are ready. All right, let's look at what tasks to offload first. So we've got super simple. And I feel like a lot of times, um, even our clients who are just like really polished and look like I have it all together, they come to us and they're like, I don't even know what they can do. It's like they can do anything that requires you to be on your phone or on your computer because they also have a phone and they have a computer. So anything that requires you to be at your computer or your phone can be delegated. And I will tell you, I'm the delegation queen. I will delegate anything that I possibly can because I know how much time I know how valuable my time is. But let's look at this. So, emails. How many times do you open up your inbox and there's 100 emails and you're already feeling anxious? They could be going through your email box, deleting things, seeing a response from a client that could easily be put into Claude AI and then get a response back and send the email for you. Like my assistant has worked for me for 6 years now. She will respond and her emails are better than what I would write because I don't like to put the attention to detail sometimes. So she actually takes the time to write a response. Or let's say you have an unhappy client. You could have your VA craft an entire email response. You could review it and then say, okay, send. So sometimes it's just taking that brain space that of like overwhelm for us and stress for us and just let them handle it. Scheduling in your calendar. So I think being super professional is sending our clients uh, a request for in their calendar. So inviting them to showings. Like if especially if you have corporate clients, very and younger clients tend to really care about this. If you look so polished when you send them a Google invite to all of the showings with the time frames or a listing presentation, I guarantee you that if you're going up on a listing presentation against three other agents and you're the only one who sends the Google invite, they're gonna be like, wow, this person is on it. So these are just the little things that and nuances that can really go a long way. And then document prep and e-signatures. I will tell you, as I still do investing and referrals here and there. Because I have delegated out offer prep and e-signatures for so long, now when I try to actually write a contract, like I can't do it. Um, it's just something that somebody else can fill in the blanks for you. So if you're on the run and let's say you're an hour from your office, you have a buyer who wants to make an offer on a house and it's in multiple offers and the highest and best is due in 3 hours. What you can do is you can call your VA, say, I need you to start prepping this offer. Here's the buyer's names. Look up this information on the tax records. You could have the whole layout for them so they understand what the offer looks like. You can pull over your vehicle real quick, review it, say, okay, it's good to go. Send via DocuSign or in Rezen, whatever you're using, and then have it sent to the buyers. And you could get that offer put in immediately while you're still driving back an hour to your office. So you never have to fill out paperwork or send e-signatures again. It's a beautiful thing. CRM and data entry. I know you're not spending enough time in your CRM. It's just impossible with the amount of clients we have and how busy we are. Let your VA enter everyone into the database. They can create automations where you'll have a funnel and the leads come in automatically and then they get set up on drip campaigns. You're like, I don't have drip campaigns. That's fine. Let your virtual assistant create drip campaigns in Claude and then automate your CRM. Okay, social media scheduling, listing content creation. You get a new listing. You could have them create a reel, carousels. You can have them post in local Facebook groups. Sky's the limit. There's so much you can do there. Newsletter and email drafting. Alex, I know this is something that I think you had already had one when we started working together. I said, let your VA put together the template and then you add your spin on it and then let them execute and send on it. I've been sending a weekly newsletter for the last 2 years. People still will open emails from you. It's a big deal. They see your name in their email on a consistent basis. So even if they're not opening it, you are getting brand awareness. So this is really big. Um, Canva graphics and flyers, pretty basic stuff. Lead follow up. So we talked about the drip campaigns, the different touch points, missed calls. So let's just say you have either it could be a client, it could be you needed to call back your dentist to cancel an appointment. It doesn't matter. You can have your assistant make calls for you. Not a problem. And then also scheduling buyers and consultations, listing consultations. They can pre-qualify people over text in your CRM and then get the appointment booked for you. And then TC, this is something specific. We have some clients who hire us just for a TC. Like if you're doing 6 to 8 deals a month plus, you might just want to look at bringing on a dedicated TC because there is a break even point where it's more economical to bring on a virtual assistant TC than to pay an outsourced TC. So if you're paying like $400 or $500 a month for an outsourced TC in your local market, and you can bring somebody on who, after 3 or 4 deals, they pay for themselves, it might make more sense. And also if you're doing like 2, 3 deals a month, your virtual assistant who's doing your admin, your lead follow-up, and your marketing can also do this. So you can set it up however you want. And some of our clients, like we've had 2 clients in this last week who said we actually want to hire one full-time VA and one part-time because they wanted somebody more detail oriented for this other stuff, and then they wanted a creative for marketing. So you can mix and match however you want because you're going to hire to a specific skill set. By the way, if this seems really, really overwhelming to you, you do not have to build this all out at once. You can say, you know what? My lead follow-up absolutely sucks and I can't live like this any longer. I'm going to start there. Or, I already have a TC. I don't need to do that. Fine, cool. Um, you can decide how you want to roll with it. We actually have a really elaborate spreadsheet that in Google Sheets that we give to our new clients now that gives them very detailed task lists for their assistants so that you aren't creating it because a lot of times as agents, like we just don't have system mindsets. And so it's hard, like the thought of going in and having to create all of this is so overwhelming. So we will help with that.
Well, and I think it's nice, Candace, since you were an agent, or I mean, you are still an active agent, but because you were doing a high volume business, you had like a list of you were able to kind of base on what you had been doing in your business and create that spreadsheet, which is super helpful.
For sure. Thank you. So some people are like, I don't want to delegate everything to my VA because I love my clients. That's like one of the biggest things I hear is like, well, I don't want to lose my relationship with my clients. Your virtual assistant should make your relationship with your clients 10 times better because you are, first off, going to be so much more polished when you have systems around going to a listing appointment. We talked about scheduling the invite in their calendar and then sending out a pre-listing consultation email with your professional videos and your reviews about yourself and just like really setting the stage for your professionalism. And then here's what I found because I used to go on a listing appointment every single day. So I would prospect in the morning. My VA would do everything. Everything else was taken off my plate. No one could talk to me until I booked a listing appointment. Then once I would book it, she would take care of putting everything together. And then my afternoons were spent going on 1 to 2 listing appointments. And that's just how I ran my business until I built my team. So, totally forgot where I was going to go with that. What I was gonna say is, so when I was actually at the table with the sellers, I never felt like I had to rush out of there. You know, when you're either like a buyer's taking too long at a showing and you're like, I gotta go, I gotta write this offer, I gotta send this out, I gotta, and you're like, you just stop paying attention to your client because all you're thinking about is the things that you have to do. When you can delegate all of those other tasks off, what ends up happening is you can act more calmly, you can act more confidently, you can spend more time at the table with that seller, really listening to their needs instead of tuning them out, thinking about all of the things you have to do. And so I just felt like I was serving my clients better when I didn't have all of those other things to deal with. Does anyone ever feel like they're rushing their clients because they gotta go? Yeah. All right, so what to look for in a great VA? Not all VAs are created equal. So if you guys probably heard horror stories about people who have hired VAs, sometimes we have clients who come to us and say, I had the worst experience ever. So listen, we are in the human business. This is what I tell everyone. We managing people will always be the most difficult aspect of owning a business. I hear it from people who own golf courses and cleaning businesses and restaurants, and that is just part of growth. What we do at Easily Virtual is we try to make managing people as easy as possible for you because we understand that it is super stressful. What we focus on is bringing in very professional, experienced, and actually real estate experienced virtual assistants so that you're not training them from start on what is real estate. And we're also doing a vetting process and initial rounds of interviews. So we are only finding like the really, really skilled professional high level individuals. We're not just finding you some random assistants in a job board. And a lot of times when people don't have a great experience, it is because they just brought on an unqualified person or an unmotivated person. And so, we that's just what we do every day. All right, so green flags to look out for. Proactive communicator. Uh, Most of the people that we work with that have had bad experiences said our VA just sits and waits for me to give them something to do. That's a total waste of money. You never want to do that. So finding someone who's proactive. And that's something we teach all of our VAs on. If you have nothing to do, find something to do. In this business, there is always something to do. They have experience with CRM tool and real estate tools in general. So they already know how to put a listing in the MLS. They already know how to use a CRM. So they're coming to the table with skills already. They have strong written English. So people are always worried about the language barrier. Luckily, that's not something we deal with very often, but that is important, right? Spelling words right, using the correct punctuation. Those are all things as a high level real estate professional, you want to make sure that all of that is being done. Now, AI is now making that super easy. Almost everything gets ran through AI. So we don't really see those sorts of errors anymore. They're available during core business hours. I've had multiple discovery calls this week with agents saying, I had a VA who worked the opposite time as me. That is never going to work. So you need somebody that's going to work your regular business hours in your time zone. References from other real estate clients. So you want to work with somebody who has references, and that's what we do during the vetting process. We check with on their resume, and we make sure that they have that experience and that previous employer had a good experience. And then ask great qualifying questions. We're going to go over what those interview questions are. But so red flags, if you are going to hire somebody and they're very vague, that's a bad sign. You need clarity. They don't have any samples, portfolios, or references. That means that they either aren't telling you the truth or they never did anything that would create these samples or portfolios. Overpromising skills that they can't demonstrate, that definitely can happen. So, and that's something you'll know within a day, whether they are who they say they are. Disappears or goes silent for a long period of time. That's a huge no-no if that ever happens to you, whether you work with Easily Virtual or anybody else, you want to address that right away. Resistant to testing tasks. So if they don't want to do the thing that you want them to do, that's a cause for concern, and they can't clearly explain past responsibilities. So in the interview process, it's super important to ask a lot of questions that are going to prompt them to give you more descriptions. So that leads me into the next thing, 5 questions you should ask during a VA interview. Walk me through how you manage multiple deadlines at once. So instead of asking yes and no questions like, do you have experience with working with a lot of multiple deadlines? And they would just say yes. So ask questions that are going to prompt them to give you a really elaborate answer. What real estate tools have you used? How confident are you? So this is where you're going to know if they really, really know their stuff or not, because they could say, oh yeah, I've used a few CRMs, or they're going to say, I used Follow Up Boss, and within Follow Up Boss, I did X, Y, and Z, or I used Go High Level and I built it out for my previous client. So they're going to let you know, and you're going to see how confident they are. Tell me a time you made a mistake and what happened. I love these questions because it makes them think, and it's people do make mistakes. So question like that, or what does your ideal working relationship with an agent look like? I want to know if the person I'm bringing on wants to even work with me. So I had an interview. We're hiring a new coach internally, and when I explained what we do, who we are, what my style is, I'm like, is this something you would want? Because we have a lot of clients who are like, I have no systems, I have no organization, I'm crazy. Like, and that's fine. Like, we're all a little crazy, but I say, like, just be as honest as possible. Like, tell them how crazy, it gets. Tell them how high stress it is, or hey, it's really relaxed around here. We work with people, we have clients in Hawaii and we have clients in Buffalo, New York. Their styles are extremely different. Their work environments are extremely different. And so the more information you can give them, the more helpful it is as well. And then we will all be guilty of this. If I give you a task with unclear instructions, what would you do? I still do this to this day. We all do it. So that's also a great question to ask. How do you handle when you don't have clarity? And then how do we set them up for success? So first 30 days are going to be crucial because you're going to learn how skilled they are and how much of an impact they're going to make on your business. It's usually clear within those first 30 days. Again, might look a little overwhelming. It's really not. It's a baby step process, and we're here to support you guys as well. And anywhere you hire a virtual assistant from, make sure that there's an internal support, because what you don't want to happen is them relying on you for every single question, because that gets overwhelming when you're already fielding questions from agents and buyers and sellers. And so if they have a resource to go to, it's just a lot less time consuming for you. Something that's really important, and if you're not using Claude AI, I want you guys to go get this today. And if you hire a virtual assistant in-house, you're going to get a team account. So this is something we are actively building out in the next couple of weeks and highly training our virtual assistants on, because what I have done personally in Claude in the last 4 days, I have made more progress in the growth of my business than I probably have in the last year and a half. So the way that I see it is you give your VA and Claude your brand voice, which is going to be your colors, your fonts, your styles, and then taking past copy of Facebook and Instagram that you've put out. It's going to internalize your brand and voice, and it's going to allow your assistant to now create marketing materials and newsletters and drip campaigns that are actually your voice. So just step one, build a brand guide. Super easy, doesn't have to be crazy, but have that together, because otherwise your virtual assistant is going to be clueless when they go into your Canva and they see 10 different fonts and 10 different colors. And so you just need clarity is what you need. You're going to give them access to your tools, and then you're going to walk them through a couple of things to get started. And then your VA can shadow you in real time. So first time you and your VA put a listing in the MLS, you do it. You guys are on video, it's recorded. They take that recording. Then the next time you have a listing, they input it, you review it for accuracy, and then they can go ahead and put it live. And then anytime they ever have to go back, they have that video that they can watch. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to put together all this crazy stuff. You can do the looms as you're showing them the first time, and then that's it. So you're showing them one time. The other thing you can do, and people always ask me, should I create the SOPs first or hire the virtual assistant first? And it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but you can do either or. If you are super organized, you can create the SOPs ahead of time. Most of us are not. So, in that case, let your assistant create the SOPs. And now they can take the video, they can put it into AI, and AI will create the entire SOP. You now have it for if you ever bring on, sometimes you'll promote your virtual assistant or you'll have a staffing change. Now you have that forever. It's housed in a Google Drive, and now you can always slide somebody else in and they would know exactly what to do. You're going to want to do some performance check-ins. This could be formal or informal. I also think that celebrating wins is important. Virtual assistants work super hard for us, and sometimes we throw a lot at them and we don't always acknowledge their hard work. And it's probably because no one really acknowledges our hard work, right? So it's like we're not used to getting pats on the back. No one's saying, "Oh my gosh, you're such a great agent." Sometimes our clients do, but usually not. So, celebrate them. Like they're working their tails off for us, doing all of these things in our business. And so celebrating those things are great. Okay, so we talked about the Loom videos, building it once and running it forever. You will feel like you have superpowers when you have tasks figured out and detailed for this person to do every single day. When I look back at the the deals that I closed because my assistant did something, like for years, every single morning she would go into my Instagram and she would any new follower, she would ask, "Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in Cape Coral in my community?" And she would then send that out to everybody, and I had hundreds of thousands of commission because I posted a lot of content, people would follow me, they actually were interested, and they would say yeah, and then I'd book the appointment. Or she would spend 30 minutes a day liking and commenting on people in my local area, like other influencers and people who had large followings, and she would interact with them on my behalf, and then they started following me. And so it just snowballed from there. But it's like these little things over time that make the biggest difference. And what I would love for you guys, if you hire a virtual assistant a year from now, be like, I could see all of these little things help me get that one big deal or grow my brand, or freed up my time, which allowed me to go work stronger on my listings or working with more luxury buyers. So that's what I want to see for you. And it all comes down to having them do these specific tasks every single day. All right. So talked about this. Okay. So one of the things that a lot of our clients aren't sure on to start because they've never hired someone before is like, what are the expectations? And this is something you really want to set up with your virtual assistant is what is the expectations? Because if you're expecting them to respond to you in 2 minutes and they're like, we had one time, one of our clients, he had a big podcast and his virtual assistant was responsible for the video editing. So one day he messaged us and he's like, I can't get a hold of her. And he's like, I haven't been able to get a hold of her for 30 minutes. So we're like frantically trying to get a hold of her. And she was like, yeah, I had my headphones on and I was cutting the podcast. So sometimes we have to figure out what the expectations are, and it can be touch and go, but what's the window? I want you to respond in 5 minutes. Okay, well, sometimes your virtual assistant has to go to the bathroom. Or when do they take breaks? When do they take their lunches? So just communicating and getting to know each other, I think, is really important. And then this is something at Easily Virtual that we train all of our VAs on is to send a start of day and an end of day message. It could be a text message, it could be an email. First off, you need to know when they start and when they're leaving for the day, but also what are they working on? Because if they don't tell you what they're working on, you're going to assume that they're not doing anything. That's just where our human nature is like, oh, I didn't hear from them, but they're not doing anything. And we had that happen before, and then they're like, well, I was doing all of these things. I just didn't tell them I was doing it. So that's really important for us. And then also decision authority. So my chief of staff, who's been with me for 6 years, she can pretty much go do whatever she needs to do. She can hire her own assistant without me. She can make pretty big decisions in our company without me. Um, I don't like drama, so I don't want to hear about the drama. It's like take care of it. I don't need to know about it. But then there's other escalations that, okay, you got to come to me about. So it's just about learning your assistant and then also what your comfort level is because some people, like, you might want to know about every little thing that happens, or maybe you just don't care. Totally fine. You guys just got to figure it out together. Oh, and then the other thing is making a mistake. By the way, every single one of us makes mistakes, including in-person assistants, including people that you hire on basis. Like there's always people who make mistakes. So my biggest thing is it's okay if you make a mistake, but if it's something that affects our business, you need to tell me. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are wondering, what does the pricing look like here? So there's multiple different models for virtual assistants. There's not one size fits all. So Jenny mentioned that she hired somebody as a project base. So you could go on a website like Upwork or Fiverr. You could just find someone to go run a project for you. And actually, sometimes we do that. Like I wrote an ebook and there was no way my virtual assistants were going to give me a cover that I knew I was going to be happy with. Like they've never done an ebook cover. So I went on Fiverr and hired somebody for $15. That's fine. You might just decide like I just don't want to have somebody working every day, but I want someone to build out my CRM. Awesome. Go hire someone project based. You there's so many people out there that will do it. You tend to pay more money on the project base because those people don't rely on steady income, so a lot of times it's just more expensive. You can hire somebody just hourly, a couple, 4 hours a week. We do hear about that. The problem is most people want consistent work. So if you're hiring somebody for 3 or 4 hours a week, they're usually not going to last with you for very long. And then here's what we offer Easily Virtual, a part-time and full-time. So with part-time, they are working 20 hours a week and they're consistent. So they're either working a morning shift or an afternoon shift for you. And then this is for our clients who are super serious about their business and delegating, which is our full-time position at 40 hours a week. And I know you're probably like, I don't have that much work. Yes, you do. We have so many clients who come to us who are freaked out about full-time. And I'm like, you sell 40 houses a year. You have open houses on the weekend. You're working till midnight. You haven't touched your CRM. You don't post on social media. You have no newsletter set up. You have no procedures for your TC management. Like we can make this work. And if at any time your your business changes, we are very flexible. So if you did come on full time and at some point you're like, you know what? We created all these automations and now I just don't need them full time. That's fine. We can bump you down to 20 hours. So, as Alex knows, with working with us, we're super flexible and we really just want what's best for your business. So, we can shoot it to you guys straight and let you know what we think. Because some people really only need part time, and that's fine too. We have a lot of really good part time people. All right, so what does a VA actually cost? So much less than what you're going to pay a US based assistant. So a lot of people come to us and say, I had an assistant in-house, it's just not affordable, and I'm spending $60,000 a year by the time I pay them. I pay payroll taxes, the payroll service, health insurance, all of the things. It gets expensive. So you can go hire a virtual assistant on your own and there's pricing all over the board. At Easily Virtual, we're just under about $11 an hour all in. So you don't have additional payroll taxes. You don't have any additional fees outside of that. So um, our structure is $8.99 a month for part-time and $17.99 a month for full-time. So like I said, that comes out to just under $11 an hour. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I actually had some questions about Claude, because I've kind of had it on my to-do list to move everything over from ChatGPT, just
Hmm.
because I've heard such good things. You mentioned something about I don't know if you said a team or like, do you just give the assistant the login for Claude, or how does that work?
So I would set up, and ChatGPT and Gemini have this as well, which is it's a team account. So there's multiple seats, and then you have ownership. So this is something I'm big on. You always need to have ownership of everything that is created in your business. And so you could get them an individual account just under an assistant email. But I would probably just get the team version of it. Don't let them use yours. The Because what happens is if you're using it and you're planning a trip or you're putting personal information in there, it's going to start learning. And so if they put their personal stuff in and you put yours in, it's going to be really conflicting. So
Yeah.
just have them set up their own.
So with a team account, I'm assuming like as you're training Claude, it's able like the whoever's on your team is then able to kind of like, because you start training like your voice and how you say
Hmm.
things and all of that kind of stuff. Are they then able to like kind of access that, or how does that work on the back end?
Let me look into that because right now, they did our brand voice on theirs, and I just let them roll with it.
Got
And
it.
then I have mine. So let me find out if they can talk because we haven't dealt with that yet, but I'll find out.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about like when Patrick and I have done stuff, like he would give me, you know, his version, then I would kind of like play around with it to put it into my voice. But
Hmm.
if the assistant had like access to my brand voice, that would be so much easier, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, let me find out.
Okay. How do you think it's gonna, because I know with Claude, like I've seen videos of like how it can take over your screen and clean up like your email and your
Hmm.
documents and like all of that kind of stuff. How is that integrating with like a VA?
Yeah, so this is something that, I mean, it's just advancing so fast. It's
So
wild.
fast.
And agents fall in many different boats. So we have some, like I talked to a very ultra luxury agent the other day who has an insane brand and a big business. And I told her about Claude. She's like, I don't care. I don't have time for it. She just like shut it down. We have some clients who are using it at a really high level, But like we have somebody last week who hired two virtual assistants, but yet he's really integrated in AI. So I think that there's always going to be a need for virtual assistants because what I found, and I've been building stuff out this whole week, that it still requires human touch when you have deliverables and different things. You still have to you still have to get it somewhere. And I just don't think in real estate, we're not sitting at our desk all day. And that's what I've learned this week is AI is incredible, but a lot of it still has to be done sitting at a desk. And we're real estate professionals are people. And so who is going to build this stuff out? Who's going to do all of the research on it? And I think that's what's tricky is like the reason a lot of people don't want to get into AI, they don't have time, they don't understand it. They don't care right now. They probably will in the next couple of months. But I think if you have a virtual assistant who is highly trained in AI, that's going to be they're going to be a superhero in your business because you're going to be able to get so much accomplished. It's going to be wild.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys are training the assistants right now, like in Claude, right?
Yes. So we actually, it's happening right now. Is we have a training specifically around building content. So all of our
Okay.
VAs are in a mastermind right now on that, and there's gonna be a very heavy focus. And then internally, we just hired a coach who understands this at a deep level because I just think we all need to understand it and we all have to utilize it. And I think with
Yeah.
virtual assistants in general, they know that if they don't adapt to this, they're not going to be valuable. And
Yeah.
what I see moving forward, because I'm experiencing this already with my own staff, is if you are not highly valuable, people aren't going to keep you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a way around it.
No, yeah. I mean, it's such an amazing tool. It's just, yeah, it's like evolving so quickly, and it's like seeing, I've been using ChatGPT for such a long time, and then now seeing like what Claude can do, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even thought that. It's just crazy. It's
Mm.
so nuts, all the things that it can do. And so it's, yeah, trying to keep up with it and while also still running your business and all that kind of stuff. Chanel, do you have any questions? Oh, I think
Okay,
you're.
there I am. Hello.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions. I do have two VAs. One that's more specific to my transaction and communicating with my clients, and then I have one that's more like marketing focused. My question is for the VA that's in the transaction, I find her time of day is not always as structured. So she works with multiple clients. So I never know like what the window is going to be for any given day. And so sometimes I'm like, I need this done like ASAP. Or like if I get a client who wants to schedule showings, maybe like at 3:30, she's like, oh, that has to wait till the next day. So I'm trying to like figure that piece out. If other people are scheduling their VA for a time slot, and then if for whatever reason something happens outside of that, what are you doing? That's my first question.
Mhm. Are you paying this person per file or by the hour?
It's a monthly fee.
Monthly?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's tough because was there an allotted amount of time that was decided on?
No, it's not like an allotted amount of time. It's more like, okay, if you have, I think, up to 10 transactions like per month, like she can work on that. Hmm.
So we, the reason that we've never implemented anything like that is because it just doesn't work well. Exactly what you're experiencing is like you're paying
Hmm.
the fee and then your expectations aren't aligned because she's servicing multiple clients. You're obviously you want to put your needs first, right? I've got clients who need something now and she's not available. And so that's why with our model, our part-time even, there's a morning shift and there's an afternoon shift. And we do not have any of our VAs working for multiple people at the same time And if we do, that is, we let them go immediately. It's very hard for them to stay focused when they're working for so many different people. Like, how do they keep that straight?
So when you say morning and afternoon shifts, so for example, you may have a VA who has, I don't know, two clients. So and what's that morning shift? Is it 4 hours, 3 hours? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, what time zone are you in?
Pacific Standard. I'm in California.
Okay. So you would have your VA working from, maybe it depends on their what their hourly needs are too. So maybe it's 7 to 11 or 8 to 12. So it's a 4-hour shift. And then they take a 1 hour lunch, which so they log out of their systems with that client, take their lunch, debrief and just take it easy for an hour, and then they start with their afternoon client, and that would be from 1 to 4, or I'm sorry, 1 to 5 or 2 to 6, and that seems to have, we've never had a problem with it.
So, and it's interesting you say that because my VA that does more of my marketing, she does have a shift from 1 to 5. So it's afternoon, 4 hour block. So I know during that time I can communicate at any point, especially if I need her to pivot and prioritize something else. So that's good to know. And then I'm also curious. I know I do weekly meetings with my VA just to make sure. Let me back up. I assign the task at the beginning of the week on Asana, so she knows exactly what needs to happen on Monday. I give her free will to do those tasks throughout the week. Sometimes I'll say, hey, this is a priority, so please work on this. So I'm curious how other people are communicating and then on what platform, and if you're having like weekly or biweekly meetings.
Yeah, so we have we have some clients who communicate with their VAs all day long and some who don't talk to them regularly. What I recommend is having those repeatable tasks, I mean, 20, 30, 40 of them that you know that they're doing every single day consistently. And then that way you don't have to communicate about those, right? They know what they're going to do every single day. And then there's going to be projects that they work on. I personally do not check their project management Google sheet. Like, I leave that to them just because I don't like micromanaging people. Like, you're either going to do it or you're not. So I'm a little bit different than some people. And I also you're see it's difficult when you're like you have so many moving parts in your business and you might not have the consistency of always being in your office, but having a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting to go over things makes a lot of sense. For me and my business, I'm not a very structured meeting person. We do a big meeting once a year, but other than that, we're just moving. Like, we're just constantly implementing things. They say, okay, it's done. And so I'm not as structured on that. And I just think it depends on the person. So if
Mhm.
you feel like, and I also think this is how much confidence do you have in your person? And I think
Mhm.
I have so much confidence in them that I just let them roll. But what I find is if you're not feeling as confident, you might have to have more meetings, or if there's not as much clarity on what the vision is on what you're doing, you might have to have more meetings. So I would also think, why am I feeling like I need to meet with them regularly?
And I should preface that it's more the marketing one because there's a lot of projects marketing
Yeah.
wise. The other one that's in my transaction, she and I do not meet weekly. She knows,
Okay.
yeah, what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we meet
Yeah.
like
Well,
once a
I
month.
think if you have a lot of marketing projects and you're more creative, and I feel like sometimes we like to dabble more in the things we like. So, like you said, you had a lot of marketing projects, and maybe once a week is that could be appropriate if you're like, okay, where are we at on this? What is this looking like? I just saw this. Have you heard about this? And it sounds like maybe you're bouncing ideas too, which could be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so if you guys are interested in bringing on a virtual assistant or even just finding out, is this the right time? Is this the right fit? You have more questions. here is the link to schedule a discovery call. So we'll just spend 30 minutes going over your business, going over your structure. What is your vision for the next year and what really your goals are. And we can just go over that. So we can book that there. And then you can also follow me on Instagram. And I'm an open book. So anytime you have questions, just DM me. I'm happy to help. And even if you don't use our company, I'm happy to help.
The other thing too that I kind of just wanted to quickly like touch on because this was something that going into hiring a virtual assistant, I like didn't know what to expect of like the process of like how would I, connect with them if we're not meeting in person. And one thing that I appreciate that you guys do is when you guys send out the candidates, right? It's like you guys take the, intake of what are you looking for? What are you needing in your business? All that kind of stuff. What's your personality? You guys provide the disc assessment. You guys have, they videotape themselves talking for, a minute or two. So you can kind of see like their demeanor, their tone of voice, how quickly they talk, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's the resume. And a lot of times you guys are also providing like a portfolio of things that they've done in the past. So I think that that was something I was really nervous about going into of like, well, how do I find my person? And so that was really helpful to like be able to go through each candidate, watch the video, kind of see like, because you're talking to these people regularly and it's like, okay, are we gonna jive? Like I'm very bubbly and like go, 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 go. So someone that's like really quiet and, I don't know if we would necessarily jive. And so that's something that I really appreciate that when you guys are like providing candidates, it's very detailed and you're able to really see the candidate holistically before you're, proceeding forward with interviews.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. And I also think there's a lot of anxiety around hiring somebody. And once you come in, you see their video introduction and you get a good feel for who they are, and then you interview them and you connect with a person, it goes from being super anxious and nervous to just being really excited because I can just see it in interviews. People just click with somebody and they're like, that's my person that I'm so excited about. And all of a sudden you're just feeling super excited instead of overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure.